where the goodies for this year can be accessed. That's in our resources section on the website. And I'll show you now what the page looks like when you come to open it. There it is. So you'll see our logo. You'll know you're in the right place. And this is the section where, so we always have the current World Labyrinth Day in Educational Settings resources at the top of the page. There's a lot more as you scroll down, but tonight we're just concerned about, about this part here. And so if I work from left to right, the image on the left-hand side in the window is the poster. So you can download that poster. I think it'll download if you hit the image, and you will also find it in the right-hand side. There's the poster where I don't know whether you can see my mouse, where I'm hovering.
Yes, we can see it.
Right, okay. So that's where you can download the poster onto your own computer. The pink box center top, that's the place where you can register. Now, we're very keen for anybody who's working in an educational setting, no matter what that setting is, to register so we can get a sense of who and where the celebrations are taking place. Now, obviously not everybody does, because we have lots of surprises, don't we, Ellen, when all the photos come in, and we see who's been playing on World Labyrinth Day, and we didn't know, but it would be lovely if you did register, if that's your context. There's a checklist. I mean, use it or don't use it. And then in the right-hand column, these are the 2024 resources. So there is a guide, which is what I'm going to walk you through shortly, and we'll be doing some exercises as we go. A good reminder right now to reach for some paper and some pens or pencils so that you can take part in the exercises. The guide comes with teacher notes. So there are some things that are specifically referred to in the guide. Instead of putting a lot of detail there, we put them into the notes that they can be referred to. And then the poster, which I already mentioned, and the other part of the package is a PowerPoint, which is simply an introduction to labyrinths. If you're new to the game, or even if you're not new to the game, perhaps you're introducing people who are new to the game, you can use that PowerPoint anywhere, anytime. So as we said earlier, while we promote these as being pitched for use in educational settings, that's not the only way these materials can be used. And so what I'll do now is I'll share this particular document, Peaceful Hearts Guide, Peaceful Hearts 2 Guide, and we'll get started on our individual little exercises. This is your last chance to get some paper and pens together. While I navigate share screen. Here we go. Now, a quick overview. One of the brainwaves we had this year when we were figuring out how we would develop the material and what we might do was we decided to make this like a grab bag. So we're going to grab some of this and grab some of that and grab something else, and we're going to put it all together. So these are the things we'll work through. We're going to grab a core value. We're going to grab a key question or two. Then we'll grab a labyrinth, and then we'll take what we have into the labyrinth with some ideas and some thoughts. So let's go to the next page. By way of explanation. Here we are. Last year, we produced material under the theme Peaceful Hearts, and our focus was on heartfulness practices. Now, Teresa's going to talk a little bit about that shortly. So this year, we felt that Peaceful Hearts still had a long way to go in terms of exploration. And so we put our heads together and developed the set of 7 core values that we feel are present in all Peaceful Hearts. And so that's why we've called this year's resource Peaceful Hearts 2, because we're still working with what we had, but we're adding to it. Anything to add, Therese, at this point?
Not just yet.
No, all right. Stay tuned. And just to be clear, because this might sound like it's a sequence from last year, it's not conditional on having used last year's materials. Everything in this year's materials is standalone. Fear not. And now we'll move on. So here we have the core values. And this is the first thing I'm going to invite you to do. We're saying that Peaceful Hearts are containers of each one of these values. So for the sake of this exercise, identify one of the values that resonates with you, something that you might be thinking about working on, or something that you think that people you know need to work on, or a class of kids they need to work on. Just spend a moment identifying one and then jot it down on your piece of paper before you forget it. You might like to put it in the middle of your paper or any other creative place. So we've grabbed the core value. Now we're going to go to the next section. And we're going to have a look at what we propose to do with this core value. We have offered some questions, open-ended questions that can be used to explore a core value. We're offering that you might have a favourite book or some other resource that you know of that works very well with the core value. We've provided an X chart, which comes up on the next page, and we'll have a practice with that. Or you could design some activities completely of your own that don't bear any relevance to what we have in here. It's all good. So we've got the core value. Now, here we go. Here are some questions. If you were going to use this value that you've identified with another person, with a small group, or with a community group, with a class of children, or with young adults, which one of the questions might you lean towards for exploring that core value? Which one jumps out at you? Which one do you think would have some place in getting some meaningful discussion going? So I would suggest that if you run with this option and using questions to explore the core value, and especially if you're working with a group of people, I think this would be really helpful. Before even moving into a discussion, I'd be encouraging giving people some time to think through what this particular value means for them. So it might be they might just jot down some words that, or the first things that come into their head, or they might jot down an experience that led to something that relates to this feeling. They might come up with some phrases or some images or some symbols. Possibly could explore the value through a graphic organizer or through a mind map, just letting words take themselves in a trail across the page. Essentially, what we're saying is some time to personally think this through before taking it into a group discussion. Therese, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've found that sometimes adults are quite shy in putting ideas forward immediately when they're thrown a question. They like to have some time to think it through.
Yeah, I think that that time to ponder deeply is a really essential time for them to, well, first of all, come back into themselves once they've been challenged by the value that is coming, because often they don't necessarily choose the easiest one. Sometimes the most challenging one is the one that's presenting itself. And so, yeah, that can already start to raise a lot of emotion and feelings. So,
yeah. So there are some other options suggested too, things like storyboarding. I mean, in a lot of classrooms now, computers and laptops are used. And so students are really into doing things graphically and with programs that the schools have at their disposal. Script writing, you're just thinking about offering things that appeal to every kind of way in which people respond. I was thinking too, like a lot of people are very movement oriented. And so enabling people to explore a value through dance. I was thinking of interplay because we've just had a huge national interplay weekend, and a lot of improvisation is used. So things like that can really work too, to help people to explore these things.
I think one of the other things that can be useful then for those who are a little bit timid is just that little think, pair, share, an opportunity for someone to think, pair, if that's what's going to give them the confidence to share before there's any movement or any recording happening.
That's a really good middle step. Think about it individually, then think, pair, share, then group. Yeah, really good. Thanks, Therese. All right, now here's the famous X chart. I'm going to invite you to have a crack at this. So on your piece of paper, just draw yourself a freehand cross as shown, and then write your value across the center. And then each one of the quadrants represents a different way of thinking about the value. So in one quadrant, you're going to just jot down a couple of things about what you would see if that value was happening. What would you be able to observe somebody doing, for example? Or what might somebody observe you doing if you're enacting that value? And then sounds like, what kinds of things would you hear going on in a room or a space where this value was being enacted? What does it feel like? What kind of sensations come across when you hear and see this value in action? And then the fourth one, which is what distinguishes this from a Y chart, so it's to develop from a Y chart, is what does it think like? What kinds of things are going on in people's heads when this value is operating? Just a few moments to do that. This exercise could also be done in a small group. So in other words, a group of people work on it rather than individuals. I mean, everything that we put up really is just a jumping off point. Doesn't have to be worked with the way that we're thinking. Oh, whoops. Getting ahead of myself. when I was still teaching, I often did these with a flip chart. So, you know, you have the old easel and you have the big sheet of paper and just work on it with the whole group. Or on the floor. That was one of my favourite places to work. All right. Have we got a few ideas and thoughts happening? Let's go on to the next. So we've grabbed a core value. We've grabbed a question or a way of exploring the core value. Now we're going to grab a labyrinth. So I suppose this section has two purposes. One of its purposes is to offer ways that people can access labyrinths if there's no permanent labyrinth nearby. I mean, you don't really want to have to get on a bus or a train and go for 2 hours to find a permanent labyrinth. So here we've given some options. The other way that this can be used is simply like by us individually. Like I love sitting down and just drawing a finger labyrinth and then working with it as I move through a day's activities. So these can be used whether you have a permanent one or not. And I like to think about which particular design might suggest itself to a specific value. For example, you know, I'll just scroll through them slowly. Which particular design might lend itself to care? Or which one might lend itself to compassion or respect? So I think these are the 3 pages. Oh no, there's another page. So quite a lot of ideas for ways that labyrinths can be connected with a particular core value.
Louise, I might just jump in there.
Yeah.
Having those varieties of labyrinths available in this printout also gives people the opportunity to photocopy a class group or a variety so children can choose whichever one they particularly want to use. They then have something to take home with them on the day, share with mum, dad, carer, whoever, and continue to engage with it down the track.
Yeah, yes, excellent. I like the idea of allowing students to choose designs that resonate with them. And so we've put some of those ideas on the pages. When you're thinking about which labyrinth design might suit best. Well, first of all, you have to consider whether you're going to be doing something indoors or outdoors. And obviously some will work better than others. Is it going to be temporary or will you use a permanent one? Over here, more like, are you going to work on a floor or a tabletop or the wall? I think a wall is a really great space for using labyrinths because you're using a completely different body action. You're using your arm, which is a bit like a Tai Chi movement. Carmel, I have a message that your hand has popped up.
Right. You know, I'm looking at the different ones that you have up here, the different designs. Am I not seeing a reconciliation or a Baltic type of design? Because I think that would be really good for a choice. And the reason I'm saying that is I chose as one of my key elements cooperation. And I think that would be the labyrinth of my choice to practice cooperation on.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a note of that because that particular labyrinth is in the social emotional materials that.
Got it.
Yeah, but there's no reason why it couldn't be in here. So
yeah,
I'm going to put that into the email I send everybody post workshop.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll just write that down.
Thank you. Cool.
Thanks, Carmel. And I think also having the link to TLS to where the resources are and all of the labyrinths that we use are there, and also the drawing of them, which is one of my favourite parts. So people can actually see the little animation of each of the labyrinths being drawn, which is fantastic.
All right. So, and I was just going to talk about this one in the top left corner. This is actually the logo for my business, and it's actually been, I used the idea of the flow through, but then I wanted something that would enable some wording to be used. And Ange, who's the third person in our team, has developed it further to make it a labyrinth that can be walked, but can also be used for recording thoughts, ideas, whatever the case may be. So there's that one. And Therese, do you want to just mention your ideas about using the lollipops?
Yes, let's get down there. So
Yeah,
this is wonderful. This is a design Ange came up with. And I know that there's the heart labyrinth out there already, but Ange came up with a brilliant way for this to be drawn. And we thought we might give you the opportunity to draw this labyrinth, and we can talk you through it. Otherwise, if you wanted to allow me, I could use the whiteboard and I could draw it. But if not, just let's have a look at the first section 1.
I think there's value in trying it ourselves, Therese.
Yes,
so it's a learning experience.
How about you do that? If you could just draw the heart shape and the line coming down. And then go to number 2. Starting at the line and going out and around and making the next heart, but stopping just short of the line. And then the third one, starting just out from the line, going around to make your heart landing on the line, and so on. And you can just make it however many circuits you like.
That's the great thing about this design. You can have 33 circuits if you want.
Yeah. So, I mean, we generally, for those working with the younger students, 3 circuits is probably enough. Children up to middle school, with, 7 to 11 circuits. Yeah. And then I'm sure the older ones would love to trial some of those huge ones. So thanks,
the other advantage of this lollipop idea is that you can really start with any shape. So Ange has done them with the dove.
And we've done them with the star.
That's right. Yeah, so you can kind of fit it to a theme. All right, that's great. So thanks, Therese, and I hope that you all have something recognisable on your paper. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. And remember, the more you practice these things, the better you get. So we've grabbed the value, we've grabbed the question for exploration, we've grabbed the labyrinth. Now we're going to take those explorations into the labyrinth. So again, we're reinforcing heartfulness practices, which appeared in last year's material, but we have included an appendix in this year's material. So you don't even have to go back to last year to find them. The heartfulness practices are in Appendix 1, which is at the end. Maybe should we go to that now, Therese, or do you want to leave it for a moment since?
Just keep progressing.
All right, and then we'll pick it up. Yeah, okay.
We'll go in order.
Yeah, okay. So as far as taking a walk on the labyrinth is concerned, we decided that we would offer some ways that designing a walk could happen. So the first thing to think about is whether And now this is whether you're working with a community group or a small group of friends, whatever, it really doesn't matter. Will the walk be directed by you, or will it be directed by the people that you're working with? So in this context for schools, will it be teacher directed or student directed? Now, for a group walk, if you want to develop one together with the group, what will be the recipe for the, if you like, the recipe, or what will be the you know, the steps that you'll move through to go on this walk. And while it can be a group walk, it can also be individualized, because the people who are walking it may have worked on core values individually rather than as a whole group. I mean, that's another choice, whether you all work on the same value or whether you're working on them individually. So having considered those things, like what is the recipe going to be for the walk that you take? And in a school context, again, it's about modeling these things for kids as well. So we've just dot pointed some choices, some things that you might like to take into account. Now, I'm not actually going to read through every one of those. This material, you can go to and have a look at that. But I do want to reinforce this particular dot point at the top of this page, because we can connect with intentions here too and help students to think about ways that they can walk with intent. We've said that the labyrinth is a container for each of the values, and so we're taking the value into the container of the labyrinth. We can actually work those two thoughts and ideas, meld them together. And so we've given some simple examples of intentions here, but of course there's also the material from the previous pre-World Labyrinth Day workshops that Chris Katzenmeier ran just a month ago. And Susie's going to put the link to those in the chat box. I'm not sure, Carmel, do you know whether they're on the World Labyrinth Day website?
No, I think it's a great idea to have a video library, and it's something I think that the committee should talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
we do have a video library. We need to add to it. There is a video library.
Yeah, it's coming, but it may not be complete. So anyway, Susie will have that link in the chat box, so you can go there for that. And yes, lots of other thoughts and ideas. And obviously, you wouldn't use all of these in a walk. Just choose what's appropriate for your group. We've given a couple of examples. An example for a group walk. I'll let you read that. Now that one would work equally well with everybody focused on the same core value, or with everybody working with a different one. No problem there. And it can be used as an individual walk as well. This example is for individualized walks.
I think just going back to the end of example one of the things that really struck us was the importance of how will I enact my intention when I leave the labyrinth. So I think it's really important to draw attention to that, because this whole process can go forward and, you know, lots of great ideas are generated, a lot of good emotions are generated, but the next step, crossing that threshold as we leave the labyrinth, is a choice, whether to continue on as we were or to enact my intention. So I love how you've included that there, Louise.
That's a very important point, how we take it further. Now we've put example 2 in as an idea or a way forward for an individualized walk. when I was going through the material before the workshop, I thought, yeah, you know, it can be a group walk too. So don't be too ruled or regulated by the suggestions. But this is one of Ange's favorites. Ange loves working with mirrors and bowls of water as a mirror. So that's one of his contributions. And now, time to reflect. So every time you take a group, or you even take yourself through a labyrinth walk, there's a lot to be gained, and there is also a lot of value in thinking about what's come out of that walk for you. What have you learned about you, and what have you learned about whatever it is that you've been focused on, in this case, a value. So these are some options that you can present to your group, your students, your friends, your community members. They're completely different styles of reflecting, so just choose something that you think would work for your group. I thought that for tonight we might just have a quick think about this simple one here. Before I came to this workshop, now I just write yourself a little sentence. All right, I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off. I just want to, these two are probably more, well, these are more geared towards middle and senior school students and adults, I would say. Now, Therese, this is Appendix 1. This is the last material in our guide resource.
Thanks, Louise. So most important is that you know your students, or you know your community that you're working with. So, you know, work with what you know already works for them. We've given you a whole range of activities. You've already got programs operating in your school and in your educational settings. So we're just providing you with a variety of additional resources. And we're also providing you with a link to labyrinths in social and emotional learning, which is one of the resources on our website as well. But within this appendix, we give the link to the heart-brain coherence work that Legacy Labyrinth Project have been working with, and the steps. So if you can just move down a little bit further.
Yeah, sorry, I was just checking the chat.
That's okay.
How far down do you want to go?
Go past the 2 steps of brain heart, because that's just there to the calming breaths. So what we've given you here are a few tried and true breathing activities. Personally, with my participants, I really like to use that space just before entering the labyrinth, even after we've had time to prepare and have a chat about everything. But coming to that threshold, whether it's with a child sitting with a printed finger labyrinth on their desk, or the one, a temporary labyrinth outside, or a permanent one that you're about to walk, having that moment to stop and just be still prior to engaging with the labyrinth is a very, very sacred time. And I don't say sacred in a religious sense, but I do say it in terms of honouring that space that we all need. So for the first one, of course, is the calming breaths on the finger labyrinth. So with a finger labyrinth, we use the shape, the outside form of the finger labyrinth, like imagine a clock, and then breathing into the 10 o'clock position and then breathing out around to the 6 o'clock position, thinking that the 6 o'clock is the entrance to the labyrinth, and doing that 3 times. It's a great way of slowing the heart down and giving the child time to regroup. Another idea for that is to actually use the non-dominant hand, because we're finding that dropping down into the heart is a lot quicker. The slippery dip is a beautiful activity that I use most times with the labyrinth and in my own personal practice, and that is, before beginning, focus the vision away in the far, far distance and take a really deep cleansing breath, and then bring the focus halfway between that far distance and where you actually are, and have a second really deep cleansing breath. And then the third one, focusing right at the entrance of the labyrinth and having a deep cleansing breath. But prior to the walk, that the child or the person would drop their gaze and then slippery dip with that next breath straight down into the heart. That's another very powerful practice. We give some other ideas in this, like that you'll have in social emotional learning programs, like belly breaths, doing a body scan, doing a bubble breathing. So there's lots of those others. But this other one, come to your senses, is fabulous. And that is particularly for those children that really don't like the silence straight away. 5 different things that you can see, 4 different things you can hear, 3 different things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 you can taste. Well, children can always taste whatever the last thing was that they had in their mouth. So that's just that ability to come back to your senses prior to that walk.
Yeah.
And I think the rest you can just have a look at yourselves.
Yeah, there's pages of them. There we go.
So we just gave you heaps of ideas.
And here's the end line. Yeah, oh, that's great. Well, thank you for your attention. Susie, are you able to let us know if there are any questions in the chat box or any comments that you're sharing?
So far, nothing. I think that from my own opinion, this has been packed full, and I've been busy scribbling notes for myself as in addition to doing the chat. So I'm looking forward to receiving to going back onto the website and looking at all this information.
Yeah, I guess it'll make a little bit more sense when you've got some background. And I'm not sure whether you already have, but Carmel had made mention of the reconciliation labyrinth. And that one is on, we have in the resources section of our website, we have one link to the labyrinth and social and emotional learning. And so you will find all of the material related to working with that particular labyrinth on that page. And I have given Susie the link, so she'll put that in the chat box if it isn't already there.
My recommendation for the chat box, and I've done this a few times, is you can actually just click in the chat box yourself and highlight the whole thing and just copy it into a Word document. That also gives you a quick link to all the links.
Yeah.
And we do have a question. I don't know, Tony, would you like to ask your question directly? Just go off mute and ask your question. No? Okay. Tony says, go ahead. Best possible way to launch my day. So how would you suggest as a way to launch a WLDES day?
I'm sorry, I can't hear properly.
No, I was just thanking the group and the presenters for the information. It's not a question. It was a comment. It was an expression of personal gratitude. So thank you. And pardon me for confusing. More coffee needed, clearly.
It's all right, but thank you.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for that expression of gratitude. It is a labor of love that we create these resources, and tonight's sharing is it's a real privilege to be here with you this evening for me.
Yes, exactly.
Louise, I wondered if you could take just, 30 seconds to explain what the reconciliation labyrinth is for people who aren't familiar with it.
Okay. Well, now I haven't got. Oh, I know what. No, I can share screen and show you. Let me show you. Right. You'll be familiar with this particular screen because I showed you this before. So across the top of the web page, there's one tab which is resources. If you scroll down the resources tab, you should come to labyrinths and social emotional learning. This is the page. So we've got a guide, huge, teacher notes accompanying the guide. Now here are the labyrinths, Ellen and everybody. So there are two pathways into a reconciliation labyrinth. Well, this particular design anyway, which is Lisa Gidlow Moriarty's, and she's given us permission to use it on the website and for people who come to the website to take it to use it. So that's all okay. There are several steps in working with the reconciliation labyrinth. For conflict resolution, problem solving, it has several functions. They're just a bit too hard to read on the screen, but basically one person is here to start and the other person is on this side, and they walk at the same time towards the center and continue in the circuit until they face each other across the center. And that says
Louise, I think you can click on it and it will bring it up.
There we are.
Yeah, there we go.
That says state the problem. And then they keep walking and they each state their feelings. Keep walking, state the other person's fear. So they're restating the other person's feeling. This is how that person in their shoes is feeling about what I did. Moving along, they stop again and then they brainstorm ideas for ways that it can or might be resolved. So they just discuss that across the center of the labyrinth. And then at the next stage, they choose what they believe to be the best option. When they reach the center, now this is where several things can happen. They can either have a little private talk about what's gone on, and they may well choose to walk out of the labyrinth together, or they might decide that they want to walk out separately.